7 Sinister Discoveries Hidden in the Haunted Woods. Unexplained secrets exposed and revealed. The secluded woods on the edge of Maplewood were not just a backdrop for children's adventures and whispered campfire stories. Each rustling leaf, each snapping twig felt like a warning of something lurking just out of sight. As Emily stood at her kitchen window, she gazed out at the swirling leaves, bright reds and yellows often used as a backdrop for fall festivals. But this autumn, the colors seemed more sinister, fading into unsettling shadows. Life in her suburban town spun on its usual axis: school drop-offs, friendly PTA meetings, backyard barbecues, until the old man disappeared, sending tremors of fear through the tightly knit community. The yard was always a place of laughter for Emily's kids, but lately, it was haunted. Flickering porch lights and whispers creeping through the playground only stoked her anxiety. She recalled the panicked murmurs exchanged among parents. Was it the woods that took the old man? Or could the real threat lie behind the doors of the houses she had trusted? Then the strange sounds began. She stiffened at the quiet thuds against her fence at night, a persistent reminder that she wasn't alone. A chill ran down her spine, turning her warm mug of tea into ice as her children spoke in hushed tones of dark figures lurking where there should be none. Were those shadows real or just figments of wildly imaginative minds? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Driven by dread, Emily decided she must confront the lurking fear. She donned her running shoes one crisp evening, hoping the rhythm of her feet would chase away the unease. But as she entered the woods, the air thickened, a chilling silence enveloping her. The rustle of her breath grew louder, almost desperate, as she shuffled over the crackling leaves. Then she stumbled upon remnants of the past, a newspaper clipping half buried beneath fallen petals, headlines screaming of missing persons from a decade ago, including names she recognized all too well. Her heart raced as she pulled it out, cold sweat beading along her brow. Each name was a dagger plunging deep into her comfort zone, uprooting friendships, casting doubt on every smile exchanged during barbecues and sunny afternoons. The ground felt less stable beneath her feet, as though something monstrous lurked just out of view, nodding along to the whispers of betrayal. In a moment of dizzying clarity, she realized this suburban haven was built on secrets, and her community's smiling faces hid a terror that might once again rear its ugly head. Just then, a snap echoed through the woods, the sound detonating in her ears like a gunshot. Emily froze, instinct screaming for her to run, to flee back to the safety of the suburb, but terror held her in place. Through the dense shadows, a figure emerged, familiar features twisted in grotesque ways, as if the very essence of that kindly old man had been replaced by something far more sinister. Fear coiled in her gut. Leaving was no longer a simple task. She had crossed a threshold, and the haunted woods didn't just beckon her, they had claimed her. The figure stepped closer, the moonlight playing tricks on Emily's eyes, distorting features she once knew so well. It was as if the very air between them warped, thick with unspoken horror. She tried to scream, but her voice became lodged in her throat, a frozen lump of panic. The old man's eyes, once warm with kindness, now glowed with a feral hunger that chilled her to the bone. Emily, he rasped, each syllable a breadcrumb leading her deeper into a forest of dread. You should have stayed away. The words were barely recognizable, twisted by a throat that seemed to have long forgotten how to speak. Emily's instinct kicked in. She turned to run, but the ground felt unyielding beneath her feet. Roots, coiling like serpents, snagged at her ankles, threatening to drag her down into the undergrowth. With sheer force, she tore free, stumbling backward, desperate to put distance between them. The woods felt alive, breathing heavily around her. Whispers echoed from the shadows, carrying snippets of conversations, fragments of laughter that turned to hollow screams, swirling and colliding like a tornado of past secrets. The air thickened, pressing in against her skin, suffocating hope with each labored breath. She remembered the stories, warnings passed down through generations about these woods, the inexplicable disappearances, the families who had left Maplewood abruptly, never to be seen again. Had they faced something like this? Had they become part of the very fabric of the trees, consumed by the monstrous darkness that enveloped the area? Help, a voice called, distant yet close, pleading, echoing through the haunting stillness. Emily's gaze darted, heart thrumming violently in her chest. The trees leaned closer, their gnarled branches curling like skeletal fingers, reaching for her, as if they wanted her to join their ranks. Driven by dread and a flicker of curiosity, she moved toward the sound. With each step, the once vibrant leaves crunched harshly beneath her, like snapping bones. The path she trod felt less like soil and more like a graveyard of dreams, burying every shred of safety and warmth she held. Please, the voice begged again. This time, it was a familiar tone, soft, unassuming, residing comfortably in her memory. Her breath hitched. It was her neighbor, the sweet woman who had brought over cookies last Christmas. What had happened to her? Where are you? Emily shouted, voice cracking, echoing back at her as if the forest itself mocked her pleas. Follow. The whisper curled around her, darker and more urgent. Something brushed against her leg, delicate yet cold. She gasped, nearly tumbling over, but as she spun around, she saw nothing but the swirling shadows dancing between the tree trunks. She fought against the urge to turn back, fighting the panic that threatened to swallow her whole. If she could find her neighbor, perhaps they could escape this nightmare. But before she could take a step forward, the ground trembled. The laughter rose again, this time a cacophony of twisted voices, a cacophony of souls trapped. Emily stumbled, heart racing, adrenaline flooding her veins as the trees leaned further, pressing in, snaring her in their ancient grasp. Join us, they whispered in unison, their breath cold against her skin, tightening the noose of dread around her. Just as she prepared to bolt, a loud crack split the air. A branch splintered, and from the corner of her eye, she caught movement, a shadow darting toward her. Her heart plummeted. Another figure? But this one was different. It seemed disoriented, stumbling, as if it too was trying to escape the malevolent grasp of the woods. Emily's heart raced. Was it friend or foe? She felt the weight of the forest closing in, and as she stood on the precipice of terror, she realized she had one agonizing choice to make. Should she stand her ground and face what was coming, or flee back into the darkness where the twisting branches would surely embrace her? The figure stumbled closer, laboring against the dense air that wrapped around trees like a cloak. Emily squinted, trying to make sense of this sudden apparition. The shadows hid its face, but the weight of despair pressed down like a leaden shroud. A part of her wanted to scream again, to shout for help, but she was frozen, unable to make a sound. Emily, the voice croaked, raspy and drenched in sorrow. It was her neighbor, the woman who had seemed so warm only months ago. You shouldn't have come here. A chill, sharper than the bite of winter, flooded her veins. What happened to you? Emily whispered, heart fluttering like a captured bird. The memories of laughter and cookies faded as dread filled the space between them. Run, Emily! The woman shrieked suddenly, eyes wide with terror as she lurched forward, her figure swallowed by the mouth of darkness that hung over the forest. Their watching panic ignited in Emily's chest. She had to act. But where are you? Her feet felt like they were stuck in cement, weighted down by looming threats. Then, the shadows shifted, and the truth unveiled itself. Behind you. A frantic gesture from her neighbor sent a surge of instinct coursing through her. Spinning around, Emily's heart sank. The old man was now standing inches away, a twisted smile carved into his features, lips drawn back to reveal teeth like broken glass. No, no, she gasped. She didn't have time. The pounding of her pulse filled her ears as she darted into the night, fueled by desperation. But the forest was alive. It embraced her, pulling her deeper, its roots clawing at her ankles beneath the leaf-strewn ground. She stumbled, barely finding her footing as the trees shuddered like giants awakened from slumber. Each breath was ragged, the chill wrapping around her throat like a noose. The cacophony of laughter rose again, echoing within the trees. It was intoxicating but terrifying, luring her further into a place of dread she never wished to uncover. "Join us," it echoed, a chorus of lost souls beckoning her, their whispers slicing through her resolve. "Get away," she screamed, praying her voice could pierce the silence. In the distance, she glimpsed a flash of movement, something not quite human, a shadow gliding between the trunks, almost a part of them. Was it real? Or another trick of her panicking mind? She broke into a sprint, dodging branches that reached out like claws. The darkness seemed to have eyes, watching and waiting, judging. Each step felt heavy, as if she were wading through thick muck. And yet, the whispers, the calling, they wouldn't relent. "I'm not one of you," she shouted, her voice cracking, her throat dry. The laughter responded with a dismissive melody, wrapping her in a chilling embrace. The just out-of-reach comfort that reality offered was slipping, transforming into something sinister. With each frantic lunge, something tugged at her shirt, a sharp tug followed by a sting that shot through her. She stumbled, her heart nearly bursting from her chest as she fought against the unseen assailant. Turning to face her fear, she saw nothing but the moonlit woods shifting around her. She was all alone, or was she? Before she could catch her breath, the shadows stirred again. Figures emerged from behind the trees, those once familiar faces contorted into something grotesque. They stood, silent as specters, eyes glimmering with an unsettling hunger. The man, the neighbor, had they become trapped, or were they the hunters now? "Join us," they whispered in unison, an invitation that felt more like a curse. The ground beneath her trembled again, this time more violently. Fighting an overwhelming dread, Emily realized the forest was alive, hungry for her, pleading for her spirit. There was no way back. She couldn't stay, but could she ever escape? With nowhere to go, desperation clawed at her throat. She took a deep breath, eyes darting back and forth for an escape. Just ahead, shadows shifted as a path opened, or was it a trap? Could she trust this moment of false hope? Or would it lead her deeper into despair? The air crackled with anticipation as she took a hesitant step forward, holding onto the flickering memory of light, her heart racing with the question, what waited ahead? Emily hesitated, heart pounding, breath quick and shallow. The path ahead glimmered momentarily under the slivers of moonlight. Shadows danced like specters along the earth, twisting and curling as if alive. Trusting this fleeting gift felt like courting disaster. But the calls of her neighbors had twisted into a frenzied chant behind her, drawing nearer with every second. "Emily," they continued, insistent, creeping ever closer. She could almost sense their jagged fingers clawing at the edge of her mind, tempting her to look back. But she pressed forward, adrenaline pushing her forward step by agonizing step. Branches snapped beneath her feet, crisp like the bones of the forgotten, echoing into thick silence. As she moved, her eyes swept left and right. What were they? She couldn't shake the thought that the familiar faces no longer belonged to the people she once trusted. Suddenly, a flash of something caught her eye. A glint in the underbrush, small and reflective, drawing her closer. She stopped, the shadows hesitating, the laughter pausing momentarily. Kneeling, she brushed away the dirt, uncovering an old locket, its surface tarnished and cold. Heart racing, she pried it open, revealing a photograph within a joyful image of her neighbor and her children, one of whom she recognized from the bright summer afternoons on the porch. The realization hit her like ice water. Those days had vanished too easily, replaced by this nightmare. Run barely, their breath whispered against her ear, feeling like an icy hand clutching her throat. The laughter surged back, now frantic and mocking. The trees shifted, closing in. The very woods felt like a giant maw ready to consume her whole. Emily squeezed the locket tightly, its edges digging into her palm. She had to know what it meant. Just beyond a cluster of twisted oaks, she spotted a small clearing, bathed in an ethereal light. Hope leaped within her. This could be sanctuary. She forced herself forward. The shadows screamed behind her, a cacophony of lost souls that surged forth like a wave. With every step, terror clawed its way back into her heart. The clearing grew larger, revealing another figure ahead, an old tree, its gnarled branches twisting towards the sky like broken dreams. At its base lay what appeared to be a stone altar, slick and dark, slick with something she feared to acknowledge. But there was more. Surrounding it were several weathered stones, each carved with names she recognized. Her neighbors. A cold sweat trickled down her back. Were they offerings? Sacrifices? In a frenzy, she scrabbled at the names suddenly. The laughter broke into shrieks, reverberating off the earth, churning into a blend of rage and sorrow. Emily, you have to join us, echoed around as faces flashed in her mind, haunting, their eyes turning hungry. Then, without warning, the ground stirred again, tremors swallowing her feet. The altar glimmered, pulsing as if welcoming her, the names pulling her closer. A heavy weight hung in the air like iron. The forest seemed to pulse with life, sentience, and the terror of what could happen next gripped her throat. Join us, the voices implored, now almost a hiss. Emily could feel the locket slipping from her fingers, an appetite of its own pulling her to the altar. What had she stumbled into? What whispers lurked among the trees, weaving their dark designs around her fate? She turned to flee, wrestling against the gravity of the beckoning altar. But it was too late. The forest sighed, an ominous rhythm drumming in her ears. The shadows converged, and every face she had once known became a fog of horror. The path to survival blurred, and every second felt like an eternity, a heavy weight pulling her back into darkness. Would she succumb, or could she find one last escape? She had to make a choice, but the voices grew louder, drowning her thoughts. What awaited her at the end of this shocking descent into madness? The shadows lunged forward, wild and reckless, as Emily stumbled back, desperately trying to grasp onto a thread of sanity. The laughter had turned into a cacophony of screams, bestial and primal. Join us, they cried, their voices mingling with the rustle of leaves, thickening the air with despair. She could feel the locket slipping, the cold metal dragging against her skin as if it had a life of its own. Panic surged within her, mingling fiercely with the dread that gnawed at her insides. She had to run. She turned, her feet slamming into the earth, her breath tearing out in ragged gasps. The trees cloaked her retreat, their gnarled roots reaching out as if to trip her, to ensnare her in their grasp. She fought against them, shoving aside the branches that clawed at her clothes, tearing them like a vengeful mob. The laughter morphed into sobs, the forest becoming a symphony of torment. Ahead, the glimmer of moonlight beckoned her only chance. Not yet, Emily, taunted the shadows, voices echoing through the depths of her mind, gnawing at the edges of her resolve. She pushed through, frantic, feeling the altar-esque pulse in her chest, pulling her back with every desperate step. Finally, she broke free into a wide clearing, her heart racing with the shock of light. But it was no sanctuary. The ground was littered with strange symbols carved into the earth, dark and unnatural. They pulsed rhythmically, each one throbbing as if alive. It felt like a warning, an ominous threshold she dared not cross. The whispers intensified, boiling with fury and sorrow, surrounding her like a storm. Embrace us, they moaned. The forest demands your loyalty. Emily staggered backward, her mind racing with fleeting memories of happier days, sunsets with neighbors, laughing children, summers that felt endless. The darkness before her felt like a dank prison, ready to swallow her whole. But buried within her panic, a thought rippled through her. Sacrifices, she whispered to herself. Their sacrifices. The connection sent a shiver through her bones. Her neighbors had been drawn into this madness, offering themselves to something ancient and hungry. Was that what they wanted from her? To take her too? The ground shook again, more violently this time. Emily felt her knees buckle under the pressure of fear, but she refused to surrender. A flash of determination surged. I won't let you take me, she screamed into the chaos, her voice barely rising above the din. In that moment, her eyes caught the reflection of shimmering light in the distance. A peculiar figure appeared amidst the trees, a silhouette, swathed in tattered robes. Its head hung low, beneath a hooded cloak that hid its face. For a moment, silence fell, a hush that settled as all eyes, human and not, turned towards the figure. And then it stepped forward, revealing an ancient staff glowing with an eerie light, projecting shadows from every angle. The shadows recoiled, the laughter dying away as they seemed to weigh the figure against Emily. Fear grasped at her throat again. Who was this? An enemy? A savior? Emily, came the voice again, deep and resonant, cutting through her swirling thoughts. You must choose. She felt the locket slip from her fingers, falling into the depths of darkness. With every ounce of courage, she asked, "Choose what?" There was a pause. The figure tilted its head slightly, the shadows creeping back along the edges of the clearing. "Your fate will determine the curse of the forest. Choose this night what you are willing to sacrifice." A cold shiver washed over her as the trees shifted, pressing in closer. The stakes of her decision loomed like the heavy fog that obscured the path home. The figure shifted again, silent and foreboding, as panic exploded in her chest. In that moment, Emily realized the threats that ripped through her mind were more than mere phantoms of her neighbors. They were real, and they wanted her to decide. And just like that, she found herself standing at the center of a dark choice, hovering on the edge. What would she give up to escape the torment, or, worse, surrender to it? Join us. The whispers fluttered like moths drawn to a flame, and time hung suspended, a heartbeat away from disaster. Would she find the truth in that rising terror, or allow herself to be consumed? What awaited her at dawn's first light? The figure loomed over her, the eerie light casting elongated shadows that wrapped around Emily like tendrils of mist. She could barely breathe, her chest tightening under the weight of her reality. She searched the figure's obscured face, desperate for any sign of sympathy or guidance. Instead, a dreadful stillness radiated from it. The whispers rose and fell, oddly synchronized with her heartbeat. "Choose." The voice intoned again, terrifyingly calm. Emily's mind raced, confusion twisting into dread. The fluttering whispers sounded like 1,000 voices entwined in her thoughts. Memories flooded her: a schoolyard swing swaying in the warm sun, the sound of laughter echoing in her ears. All of it felt so distant now, so easily snatched away. The thought of letting go of those innocent days for the sake of survival plunged her deeper into terror. "What do you want from me?" she stammered, eyes wide, desperate to pierce the figure's veil of shadow. "Your strength," it replied, the words heavy with promise yet laced in threat. "The forest demands a protector. Will you offer your strength, your will, or will you offer something greater?" "Something greater." The words rattled through her mind like a chilling echo. "Sacrifice? You want me to sacrifice someone?" An icy hand of realization gripped her. Suddenly, the faces of her neighbors flickered before her. Their chilling laughter seeped into her memory, followed by the haunting realization that they'd made their own sacrifices. "No," she shouted, shaking her head violently. "I want tea." The air thickened, suffocating her resolve. The shadows rushed in, pressing against her skin. The ground trembled beneath her feet, drawing her attention back to the pulsating symbols etched into the earth. They seemed to vibrate with anticipation, urging her toward a decision. "Every choice comes at a price, Emily," the figure continued, its voice unwavering, almost compassionate. "A life in exchange for a life, or your heart for theirs." Emily's breath became shallow, eyes darting from the crackling symbols to the unfathomable depths of the shadowy trees shrouded in darkness. Who else could she lose? Would she condemn someone to join this cursed existence? A voice broke through her spiraling despair. "Emily." It called from somewhere deep in the woods. Familiar, but tainted with sorrow. Her heart raced as another idea pierced her mind. Was it really just her life she fought to protect? "Lila?" She whispered into the darkness. Was she out there? Could she somehow help her, save her from this nightmare? The shadows danced around, twisting and howling, mocking her hesitations. "Choose for her. Choose for yourself." The darkness upon the edges seemed to urge. Suddenly, there was a flicker of movement an arm's length away, among the twisting trees. Lila appeared, her eyes wide in a mixture of hope and terror. Emily's heart leapt. Could she save her? "Don't do it," Lila called out, her voice quavering. "Fight it. We can get out of this together." The figure's presence darkened, its staff glowing a ferocious red, illuminating the struggle in Emily's eyes. "You must act now. Time is slipping away," it warned, each word dripping with urgency. Emily was paralyzed, caught between save her friend and condemning her neighbors to a twisted fate. What if she chose wrong? The whispers grew louder, more urgent, each one a gut-wrenching plea, drowning her in turmoil. "Emily, please don't leave me." Lila's cries broke through the chaos, grounding her again in fear and familiarity. Torn, Emily clenched her fists, staring at both Lila and the figure. The forest pulsed with life, tendrils of darkness creeping closer. Emily felt time pulling like a taut string ready to snap. As she fought against the dread, the echoes of her past crashed around her, pulling her every which way. With every strength she could muster, she blurted out a choice, one that would alter everything, one that teetered on the brink of damnation. But the words lodged in her throat as shadows surged around Lila, seizing her. The figure raised its staff, a harbinger of doom. Your choice will seal her fate. Fear set her heart ablaze. What had she just done? A darkness loomed before them, teetering on a precipice of horror neither could comprehend. How could she save Lila when the very ground shunned them? What awaited them in the suffocating embrace of the shadows? The moment stretched, a taut wire quivering in the silence, trapping Emily in its grip. She could hardly breathe as tendrils of shadow tightened around Lila, dragging her into a void where light dared not linger. No, Emily gasped, reaching out in a desperate attempt to grasp her friend's hand. But the shadows were too quick, swirling like smoke, and Lila was drawn further away, her eyes wide with fear. Emily, help me. The pleading echoed, but the figure's voice cut through the air like glass shattering. No more hesitation. Choose. Panic exploded in Emily's chest, each beat thundering in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to act, but the weight of the choice pressed down harder than any physical hold. What did it mean to sacrifice? A life, a heart, or all that remained of who she was? No, she pleaded, unsteady. I want to let you take her. The figure laughed, low and cruel, as if delighting in her torment. Such courage, yet so naive. You think you can fight what is already entwined in fate. Fate, the words slithered through her mind, a cold reminder that choices had led them here. She thought of the neighbors now, faces blurring with anguish. Had they sacrificed for their own survival? What had they lost to this forest? That's right, the figure whispered, its voice low like a predator stalking prey. They chose despair long ago. You were their last hope, or their next sacrifice. Every part of her screamed against this truth. Yet as she forced her eyes back to Lila, desperation surged through her veins like fire. Lila, her best friend, her very piece of hope in this maddening darkness, was drowning in shadows. Don't you dare! Lila screamed, thrashing against the dark. Don't choose them. Emily's heart cracked. I can't lose you, she choked out, the words slipping like sand through her fingers. Then choose for us, Lila cried, but the shadows kept edging, tightening, trapping her in fear. Please, Emily. But what choice was left? Choose, the figure taunted, powers swirling, dark energy pulsing, as if the trees themselves leaned closer, eager to witness the impending horror. As somehow Lila's presence seemed to flicker under the grasp of shadows, it clicked in Emily's mind, a flash of clarity amid terror. Adept to manipulation, this figure wanted her to choose despair, but what if she refused? I will not choose, she shouted defiantly, her voice ringing as if bailing against the encroaching waves. I refuse. A tremor ran through the ground, echoing her defiance. The whispers grew frantic, turning into a crescendo of anger. Whispers clawed at her mind, dragging her down. But she held on tightly, centering herself on Lila, her presence becoming the lifebuoy in a stormy sea. Then die fighting. The figure's voice twisted into a furious shriek, and shadows surged forward, consuming the space like a ravenous beast. Emily lunged forward, hands flailing. She didn't want to leave Lila's side. A promise they made echoed in her mind. I want to give in, she screamed, pushing against the surge of darkness. In that moment, darkness met defiance. A shimmer ignited in the space between them, a flicker of light against the murky backdrop. The symbols on the ground pulsed violently, lighting up the air with crackling energy. What is this? The figure stumbled back, retreating into shadow. Emily's heart raced. Lila, hold on. But the shadows roared, howling as chaos gripped the forest. Branches twisted overhead, and the night darkened, feeding off the rising tide of violent confusion. Was this light a beacon of hope, or merely a flicker before the final collapse? With one last exertion of will, Emily grasped Lila's hand, pulling with every ounce of strength she had. What if this was the moment they could break free, or would they simply awaken a deeper malevolence hiding in the shadows? The air thickened, vibrating wildly. Would it crush them, or would they be lifted from the brink of despair? In the frantic moment, Emily felt a powerful shift in the air like a charged current. She took a breath and whispered, "I choose freedom." With that, every living thing in the forest felt it, the shift, the change. But was it too late? Would they be devoured, or had they ignited the very essence of the forest's darkest secrets? The answer loomed, shrouded in the heart of darkness. The ground trembled as if the forest itself was alive, responding to Emily's bold declaration. Tendrils of shadow recoiled momentarily, stretching and twisting away from the flickering light as if scorched by its presence. Emily's heart thundered in her chest. This was a brief and fragile reprieve, but it burned with the hope of freedom. "Emily." Lila's voice broke through the chaos, trembling yet filled with an urgency that urged her to hold on. "What did you do?" "I didn't choose." Emily managed. "I defied it." Every fiber of her being screamed in exhilaration, but doubt choked her resolve. What had she really done? The figure hesitated in the shadows, its form flickering, writhing. It recoiled but did not flee. The whispers morphed into snarls, filled with malevolence and fury, echoing the forest around them. In a flash, the figure lunged forward, darkness spilling from its form like a tidal wave, swallowing the echoes of hope. Lila gasped, her eyes wide with mounting terror, pulling against the slackening grip of the shadows, which fought against Emily's light. "Fight, Emily!" she cried, terror lacing her voice. "It'll take me if you don't." Emily focused, rallying the light within her, feeling the pulse of energy that surged through her veins. "You can't take her," she shouted, channeling every ounce of will. The shadows hissed, recoiling once more but growing bolder, reforming with a vengeance, their whispers now a frantic cacophony, blending into a haunting symphony of despair. Lila's voice dropped to a near whisper, a tremor spilling from her lips. What if this was a mistake? What if fighting traps us further? The weight of her words sunk like stones in Emily's gut. Was choosing or refusing to choose, trapping them both? Fear suffocated the hope she had just kindled. "No," Emily shouted, lungs burning with determination. "I choose to fight. I refuse to let you consume us." But as her declaration burst forth, the shadows surged. They roared, a torrential wave of darkness that enveloped Lila completely, ripping her from Emily's grasp. Lila screamed once more, a sound piercing the night, filled with horror and despair as the shadows cocooned her, dragging her away from the flickering light. "Lila!" Panic clawed at Emily's throat as she lunged forward. The forest around them trembled. The trees shook, their roots writhing beneath the surface, threatening to upend the very ground they stood upon. Around her, the shadows flickered, teasing and enticing in their darkness, whispering of the satisfaction of surrender. "Join us, Emily," the figure crooned, its voice rasping through the air, smooth and unctuous. "This fight is futile. Embrace us." "Never," Emily shouted, stepping forward. She needed to believe in the light, in the connections they shared, the friendships forged in laughter and loyalty. But as the darkness closed in around her, it felt increasingly impossible. Time blurred, moments stretched like an elastic band, pulling her mind taut. Would she shatter? Would Lila fade into nothingness? A cry erupted behind her, a low guttural roar as roots broke free from the ground, twisting and writhing. Was the forest angry? Or was it alive, resonating in a vicious dance of fear? She had ignited a spark, but was it enough? The symbols on the ground pulsated, a rhythm resonating with her heartbeat, a call to action. Emily's mind raced. Think. Why had she come into this forest in the first place? What questions had led them here? And amidst this chaos, what horrifying secrets lay buried in the shadows? Lila's voice broke through again, trembling yet determined, echoing from the dark. "Together, remember? We must," but the whispering grew louder, a storm rushing to drown her voice. "What if they're away?" Emily murmured, her fear beginning to morph into something sharper, more focused. Was it fear, or was it clarity racing through her? The forest was alive, and they might hold the keys to unraveling its watchful gaze of malevolence. Suddenly, a new thought hit her like a lightning bolt. What happened if she didn't stop fighting, but instead learned to embrace the darkness? A decision loomed on the edge of her mind. Shadowed and dark in that heartbeat of panic, the ground beneath her shifted again. Did the forest beckon her closer, or was it preparing for a darker revelation? Emily's breath caught in her throat as a realization swept over her. The darkness wasn't just an enemy. It held answers. Lila's terrified whispers echoed around her, but the shadows had their own melody, seductive and relentless. Fight or embrace? She echoed, her own voice sounding foreign. The ground quivered beneath her feet, a heartbeat pulsing like a warning. Instinctively, Emily stepped forward, closer to the encroaching darkness, as if drawn by an invisible thread. Lila's cries faded into the void, muffled by the weight of shadows that pressed in on Emily. The figure twisted, a grotesque parody of humanity, its form diving deeper into the abyss. "See the truth, Emily," it hissed, the words curling through the air like smoke. "You cannot fight what lies within you." "What do you mean?" Emily spat, clenching her fists. "This is wrong. You're wrong. Embrace it, Emily. You were called here for a purpose, not just to fight, but to understand," the figure crooned, shadowy tendrils reaching out as if to caress her cheek. "Your fear is a gifted doorway to power. You can wield it." Emily felt the tide of confusion wash over her, battling against the flickers of light that pulsed in her core. Part of her wanted to resist, to shove the darkness away, but a deeper part was intrigued, curious about the strength buried beneath her fear. Before she could decide, a blinding flash erupted in the darkness. The symbols on the ground surged with energy, sizzling as they illuminated the scene around her. Faces twisted in agony, lost souls imprinted on the trees, their eyes wide with despair. They trapped, they twisted, they writhed. Emily couldn't look away. What would happen to them? She stammered, stepping back. It felt like stepping into a graveyard of nightmares. "They are the ones who were lost, bound by their own fears," the figure sighed, almost lovingly. "You can set them free, Emily. All it takes is acceptance." She fought against the urge to listen, to succumb to the promises woven in the darkness, but Lila's voice pierced through the cacophony. "Emily, don't let it win. We're stronger than this." Her words ignited something inside Emily, a flicker of hope struggling under the weight of despair. "I will save you, Lila." But the shadows tightened, the darkness thrumming against the energy of her light. It felt like a war of wills, the bright flicker of friendship against the endless whispers of despair. Emily reached deep within herself, closing her eyes to concentrate. Was it possible to wield both light and shadow? Suddenly, a piercing shriek echoed through the woods, more raw, more desperate than Lila's cries. The spirits trapped in the trees responded, twisting as if caught in a whirlpool of fear and longing. Their faces contorted with anguish, and Emily felt their despair seep into her skin, cold and heavy. "Let us help you," they whispered, voices merging, rising like a tide around her. "Free us." With a surge of anger, Emily opened her eyes. "No, I want to free you to darkness." And then something shifted. The forest sighed, the shadows recoiling as if repelled by her declaration. In that moment, she understood. This wasn't just a battle for her and Lila. It was a reckoning, a chance to reclaim the trapped spirits and find the light buried within the encroaching darkness. But the realization lingered in her mind, heavy and foreboding. What power did it require to embrace that darkness, even if it meant risking herself in the process? "Lila," she screamed, feeling the tremors of the forest shake the ground. "We can find a way to beat this." But the shadows lashed back, furious and relentless, and the figure that had once seemed distant now towered over her, a tempest of rage. "You cannot escape your fate, Emily. You are mine." The darkness roared louder, merging with the forest's winds, drowning out Lila's fragile voice. Desperation gripped Emily's throat. Did she even dare to fight back? Or was surrender more tempting than she'd ever expected? As she stood on the precipice of choice, the true horror began to unfold. She felt the ground tremble again, deeper this time, throbbing like a heartbeat beneath her. It promised something far worse than she had anticipated. Could she truly wield the darkness and not become consumed? In that heartbeat of choice, Emily stood facing a truth darker than she ever imagined. Would she dare to take the plunge into the void? Or could she harness its power before it swallowed her whole? Emily's heart pounded against her ribs as the figure loomed before her, a blend of dread and defiance coursing through her. The collective whispers surrounding them felt like a tempest, thrumming with an urgency that made it hard to think. Shadows twisted and shifted, eager to reclaim their prize. "Emily, you must choose." The figure hissed in anticipation, shadows swirling like a storm. With her friend trapped and desperate, she couldn't let fear rule her decision. And yet, that temptation to give in flickered in her mind, whispering sweetly that maybe surrender would ease the burden of fight, that perhaps it could erase her fears like a gentle wave washing over sand. "No," she shouted, shaking her head violently, desperate to clear the darkness that threatened to seep into her resolve. "I won't give in. You don't own me." With that declaration, the shadows hesitated, skirting around her, testing the boundaries of her resolve. The darkness thrummed against her skin, almost pleading, as if sensing her inner conflict. Emily took a deep breath, grounding herself. Lila's fading voice reframed her focus. "Together remember our strength," she urged, each word threading warmth through the chilling void. "Together," Emily echoed fiercely, stepping back into the memory of their laughter, of their bond stronger than fear itself. "Together." The ground surged beneath her, shaking but steadying as pulsating cymbals glowed brighter, caught in the swell of their joined energy. For an instant, darkness and light intertwined, clashing, grappling for supremacy. Then she felt it, a power, a warmth blossoming within her chest. She reached deep, opening the shutters of her fear. Emily embraced the shadows, allowing them to flow around her, transforming them into a tapestry of her memories, the laughter of friends, the warmth of connection, the love that anchored her. "Embrace your fear, but do not surrender." The figure snarled in anger, the shadows writhing and twisting, trying to reclaim her. "Fear is not the end. It's a beginning," she shouted back, eyes blazing with defiance. "I will not hide away." And with that, the shadows recoiled, shocked by her fierce determination. As Emily opened herself up to the depths of her emotions, she ignited the shimmering light. Within the unbearable weight of sorrow ignited courage. Her heart synchronized with the pulsing light beneath her feet, echoing a powerful truth. Lila's eyes looked upon her with renewed hope, brilliant against the dark. "Emily, we can defeat it. Show them our strength." "Yes," Emily shouted, feeling the energy coursing through them gather force, an irresistible wave mounting in the crest of chaos. The figure flickered, its form twisting in agony. "You think you can wield what you do not understand?" It snapped, shadows whispering in disarray. "I wield fear," Emily cried, the swelling surge pulsating, yearning for release. "But I will wield hope. You can't take that from me." The shadows roared, furious, as Emily and Lila joined in their energy of brilliant light, cascading through the darkness like sun breaking through storm clouds. Fleeting glimpses of lost spirits surged around them, swirling so fast it became a whirlwind of sorrow and longing. "Hold on." Emily reached for Lila, their hands connecting amid the thrumming chaos. The shadows flared, bending like a tree in an unyielding wind. With a collective cry of defiance, they unleashed the power of connection as waves of brilliant light cascaded outward, repelling the darkness, revealing the truth behind the terrifying facade. The shadows screamed, panicked, retreating, their dark tendrils unraveling into vapor, drifting away like smoke. The grim figure twisted, its form dissipating into agonizing echoes, swallowed by light. The ground beneath them trembled but began to stabilize, a gentle wave of energy pouring through the trees, releasing pent-up dread. The bonds of fear melted, revealing the faces of neighbors emerging from the dark corners where they had been imprisoned. Lila glowed with pride. "We did it. Together." Emily's heart soared at the sight of those faces, liberated and smiling, illuminated by gratitude. "It's not just our strength," she replied, glancing back at Lila. "It's their strength, their love." With each face revealed, an offering of hope shone brightly, a testament that the bonds they forged could outshine despair. As the figures stepped away from the darkness, they formed a circle of unity, woven together by the shared experiences of laughter and heartache. Emily felt warmth enveloping her, the forest now alive with a softer breath, no longer a predator, but a sanctuary. "We can rebuild," she declared. "We will honor those lost by living fully and lovingly." Together they stood against the remnants of darkness that spiraled into nothingness, echoes turning to whispers of peace. And above them, the moon grew brighter, casting silver light over Maplewood, a promise of rebirth, illuminating the once haunted woods with hope instead of fear. As dawn approached, the air shimmered with a possibility that felt real again. Emily clasped Lila's hand tightly. Everything was brighter now, they were free, and the world ahead was ripe for new adventures, without shadows pulling at their feet. Each step they took away from the woods was a step toward their new lives. Together, they whispered, fingers entwined tightly as Maplewood awaited them. Now, dear friends, this is the moment to act. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, and go ahead, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters, and only true fans understand the importance of standing behind the channel through these actions. Let us keep this story alive.